Welcome to the episode 3 of the Sideletters podcast, the weekly B2B insights on film, tech, and future business in Europe, made for professionals and decision makers in the creative economy, such as you. The Sideletters is a conversation between us, 3 European producers, and our guests, exploring what's going on in the markets, and we share our individual perspectives on that. It's February 25th, and we've got a couple of things to talk about. And yes, in our industry, everything is also political. News of the week, including a roundup of the Berlinale, the latest development in the Netflix versus Paramount battle over Warner and its possible repercussion for Europe, and a brand new McKinsey report on the effect of AI in the film and TV industry. And time to play for us as the awards season is coming to its climax. Next up in the César in France, we got some production here, and we invite you to find out together with us why all of this matter for the creative industry in Europe. I'm Jennifer Sabbah-Immagine. I'm a strategy consultant working from Paris.
I'm Fabian, Massah, producer working in Berlin and Hamburg.
And I'm Joanna, Szymanska, producer working from Warsaw. All right, so now that we've started, great intro, Jennifer. And since you are the one who had not been in Berlin, maybe you can start with telling us how all the discussions that we held at the Berlinale resonated in the industry in France and beyond.
Well, it was a mix of disappointment and of also joy while seeing, the result and the prices. And there were a kind of unbalance between both because, of course, Wim Wenders' declaration overshadows the beginning of the Berlinale and also his art. And I think a lot of people thought that his speech was completely irresponsible, coming from a filmmaker of his stature. The remark, felt kind of not careless, but we kind of felt that it wasn't grounded, and especially coming from a jury member, from the president of a jury, and from such a jury, the Berlinale jury, and I think people coming from region affected by war, affected by conflict, a lot of filmmakers coming from country under dictatorship or authoritarian regime were really touched by this, and it resonated in many places. And I saw on social media a lot of people commenting on it, and a lot of filmmakers were not only disappointed, but were really shocked in a way, because filmmakers are taking great risks, and sometimes it involves their life. I mean, they can be in prison. Some journalists get killed to cover the realities of some territories, and I think they expected thoughtfulness and sensitivity. And I think the speech missed completely the mark. I mean, the contract between Wim Wenders' cinematic brilliance, and this lapse in judgment was stark. And I think we all felt it because we felt a silence afterwards. So I think it reminds us also that even when you are a cinema legend, you are not immune to that kind of words, to missteps, to that kind of not being prepared to answer this question. Because I think that a lot of people were really wondering why they haven't been prepared to answer this kind of question in the current context of the world. And so it resonated for those who are suffering and carrying this heavy weight. And also at the same time, it was very complicated because I know in some countries, and I will not name the countries for filmmakers' safety, but for some countries, and I actually included in France the far-right movement, and sometimes the government, the authoritarian government, actually used it. They used it to justify what they do and to also justify their position and saying, you see, cinema shouldn't be political. Those artists are doing wrong, and that's that kind of figure that is telling you this now. So it was very complicated at the beginning of this. I think all information on the market were completely relevant, and we saw that the market was dynamic, that there were a lot lot of topic being discussed, a lot of interesting roundtable, really grounded for the market part. And I think at the end of Berlinale, I think the prizes showed that cinema is politic, and it shows that Berlinale remains a vital stage for international cinema. It just highlighted the responsibility that comes with these amazing visibilities, and unfortunately, I think they probably neglected also the way they communicate. I'm not sure he wanted to. I mean, we're going to discuss that, but I'm not sure he wanted to say that. But I mean, it's. It was a little bit complicated to see that a certain kind of elite is cut from the realities.
And Joanna, I mean, you and I we were both on the ground at the European film market. How was your perception? Was that also an issue there while everybody was dealing about their projects and markets and everything? Or was that something that came later in the reflection, as Jennifer has put it?
No, I think in general, people I talked to were very much frustrated about this because it felt so I'm sorry, I'll be very blunt, so stupid to say this, because in these political times, as I said in last episode, we make a political statement regardless of whether we want it or not. And I mean, I don't want to kind of open a discussion about the condition of the world today, even though I feel it's very relevant to our industry. But I think that what I heard, what I kind of discussions I had, were that it was a very unthoughtful, careless remark that maybe was coming from a place of not wanting to sort of declare yourself under pressure. But then again, we also, I believe that we as artists, as creators, as storytellers, and that view is shared by my friends I've met at the market, we also have certain responsibility for what we are saying and how do we use our platform and the amplified platform, for that matter, with, naming things what they are. Words create reality. And also, saying that cinema should stay out of politics is a political statement as well, because that only demands that certain type of politics is kind of, neutralized. It's asking for cinema to stay out of politics is asking for the films to sort of preserve things as they are, rather than make films that challenge or question the reality we live in. And I think that the awards showed it, that this is a vital question for filmmakers today. The winner of Panorama, the winner of Golden Bear, these films both question the reality, and they are showing the political reality we live in. And also another sentiment that showed up, and I think we will, we can promise we will do it because we discussed it. We will do an episode in the Sideletters where we will try to look at some action-driven initiatives that actually relate how to have agency, how to, as a storyteller, be able to use that frustration, anger, maybe disorientation, maybe an urge to act in a creative way. Because there are numerous initiatives that allow us as filmmakers to turn it around, not to go into this endless discussion whether cinema is political or not. Again, I feel that this is not exactly what vendors wanted to say, but that actually that we can take action and kind of look at the reality around us from a more empowering perspective. But Fabian, you are based in Germany, and that was the whole point, really, that Germany is this country that ignites these political questions.
Exactly. I mean, I don't want to take too much away from the episode that we're planning, but just some remarks from my own perception. I mean, in the moment this came out, I really felt, okay, this is so unlucky and it's not sensitive, as Jennifer said. And of course, the media outlets will take this and flip it around and drive it all around the media for their own purpose. We have to say also I think the initial question was posed by a journalist who runs his own media platform. At least they were very active in the following press conference and always tried to urge the people on stage to say something about this political issue. And I'm not saying that they're not sincere with what they do. That's not what I'm saying. But we have to understand how they deal with information and how they deal with that, because I think one of their main channels is Instagram. And as we all know, enragement is engagement on all these platforms. So the more shit you stir up, the more followers, the more engagement you will get. This is also like some dynamics behind it we should understand. But when we make this special episode about this issue, I think we should only not speak about how to, from an empowerment perspective, from the filmmakers, and also how we speak about film, because this is the biggest issue here. I also agree with you that Wim Wenders probably didn't mean it that way. I guess he meant that he doesn't want to do the work of politicians, but that film is political, that business is political, everything that we do. Bridget Jones is political, Avatar is political, everything is political.
Come on.
It's not a joke.
Top Gun Maverick is basically a propaganda film that encourages you to join American
Absolutely.
Air Force. I wanted to join American Air Force watching Top Gun. Come on.
Exactly. And if it would not be political, the audience just would not care because it doesn't have any relevance.
Yeah, but I mean, we talk about millennia, and it's the same. It's propaganda, and I think the responsibility in what someone like him says, that it's also precisely why dictators, why authoritarian regime use films. They use film because they know it's not a soft power anymore. It's a hard power. It really shapes the way we see the world. It shapes our political view. It shapes sometimes actions, and also I think some films also and some filmmakers were more than hurt by that, because for them, I mean, their film are censored, their film are banned. Sometimes they are getting arrested. They get restriction. They get visa restriction. Also, they cannot get outside their own country. They get in prison, and so it was kind of how can you say this in today's world?
Yeah, I think it's also very much about the media landscape and how words like that spin out of a narrative, create their own narrative, and reshift the conversation. Because even in the context of the awards of the festival, we are talking about how political these films are. There were political statements made on stage while receiving the awards. I know it's controversial. I know people were maybe hurt or wounded, but I think that actually started a very interesting discussion and a very needed discussion, because if we sort of continue to live in this bubble that we are, doing this art form that is elevated and that is, important and sort of above everything we face today as societies, that will also not be good, because there are some political decisions being made as we speak, The topic we want to discuss, which is a bidding war of Netflix versus Paramount over Warner. That is this is an example of extreme political power influence over the sector of entertainment. I mean, Mr. Trump just said that one member of the Netflix board has to be fired, suggesting that if they don't fire this democratic aligning board member, if she's not fired, it means that Netflix doesn't want to sort of comply with the policy, and the regulators might block the merger of Netflix and Warner, or overtake of Warner. So that is straightforward politics, and we cannot pretend that politics is not ingrained into our industry, really.
But that was clear from the beginning, no? I mean, just in the moment that Warner was for sale, there were some, everybody was weaponizing this for their own agenda, like the Trump administration. Just they made a comment and they said, okay, they want to back out, And I often feel that these kind of bigger economic shifts are kind of out of control on what we say, what we do here in Europe, until they want to make money in Europe. I mean, when we talk about what this deal, whatever outcome it would have, whether Paramount buys it or Netflix buys it, what the outcome would be in Europe, I think this is a chance for the European administrations to regulate. And if Netflix going to buy Paramount. I'm just taking a wild guess here. Of course, they have a bigger concentration on the streaming
Netflix
market.
is buying Warner, but they might go after Paramount.
Yeah, so Netflix buying everything. In case Netflix is buying Warner, I think, of course, they have a bigger market share in all streaming, so that from a regulatory standpoint, this is also interesting for the consumer market, what to do there. But more interesting also is, do they commit then still to the windows, for example, and theaters? Do they still do that in Europe? Otherwise, they cannot make any money here. I think there's a chance again, because now they're greedy. And remember when they came into the European market 10 years ago, the streamers, they were greedy. France did the right thing. They regulated them right away. Germany was too slow. Now they're not greedy anymore, or haven't been in the meantime. So then negotiations become difficult. Now they're greedy again.
They are still greedy, but they are greedy for other things, Fabian.
but maybe there's one point. And then for Paramount, I think also if one studio buys the other studio, I'm actually a bit more worried about what that will do with the landscape, because they would spend so much money, more than they have, and whatever they will do later is try to save that money back. They were going to cut jobs in both studios. Then they're going to limit the number of films that they release, I'm pretty sure. And I don't know if that's better for the markets. But, like Joanna said that last week in our interview also, that any concentration, any consolidation is not good. I think also but we don't have much choice. We can just prepare ourselves for whatever could happen here.
We feel it also in production, in the amount that they invest and in their agenda. Because when they arrive, I remember all producers thought that it was like a constant money coming, that we are going to have so much, so many budget.
Money rain. We will all be making Romas, finally.
It was really like a kind of the beginning of gold digging. And suddenly they are cutting everything. They're cutting their team in France, for instance, they're cutting teams. They're putting less money in less content, and so it's really interesting. And by the way, I read that the Netflix CEO was really emphasizing that the deal was not political, was only a business decision. So that's funny to see how this word is used all the time.
No, but this whole merger, I since we are recording this on the 24th and you guys are listening to it on the 25th, and this whole overtake looks a bit like a kind of vertical mini drama, because every 2 minutes you have a cliffhanger and a counter offer and the final last offer and the new best offer, etc. So I have no clue what's the situation while you are listening to it. But from the economical standpoint, and I'm going to quote my favorite media analyst, who is Ivan Shapiro. And if you're not following him, please do, because he is a great guy and he has an amazing insight and intel. So he is a great critic of this whole business approach to overtaking Warner Bros. And what he has posted a couple of days ago shows that both Netflix and Paramount are actually losing money because their stock market value, since the bidding war started in early December, has dropped substantially. I mean, in the case of Paramount, it's 23% drop. In case of Netflix, is 37% drop. So the only person who's actually making money right now is David Zaslav. So well done, David.
Well done.
We really all want to be like David when we grow up, because he spins this thing around and he is definitely getting a very, very healthy bonus out of all this. I'm really curious how this will work, and also from the practical terms. For me, the question is how EU and how our local governments can, and if they can, really influence this if this overtake happens. Because from Polish perspective, we are a peripheral market, and I use this because it's an academic term by Petr Szczepanik. And in this peripheral market, when a broadcaster disappears, as it happened with HBO Europe in July 2022, that's not a market shift. That's an earthquake that undermines existence of companies and creators, And I'm laughing, but it's of course a dark laugh that people sometimes don't understand that these big global corporations can literally close their operations with a call from accountant in Atlanta, because for them, it's not about growing a local market in a small CEE territory. I mean, Poland is not a small territory, but still, right? For them, we are a line in Excel. And if the numbers don't add up, and after the merger or buyout or whatever, HBO Europe is only generating costs. They don't see the perspective of a local market. They don't see that HBO Poland was one of these forward-thinking, courageous decision maker who was greenlighting projects that no other broadcaster dared to greenlight. And you can see it, in the content that's being produced, that this very daring line of production is gone, and nobody's taking those risks anymore.
It's beyond of our control, right? I mean, like you say, some account. I mean, Europe, like Germany, counts for 5% of the revenue in Hollywood, roughly. And it's, of course, it's a number, and it's not so easy to give away. But it's easier to just work in there and cancel things and stuff like that. But what does it to the culture, And this is where regulation comes in. I mean, at least create this fair playing field, and they can make money here. That's fine. And my biggest issue actually with this, and I always try to see the opportunity here, when something new is evolving. So what can we do? And the biggest issue for producers, I think, is of course the margins went down. You when they came, you said you thought you could make a lot of money, and some did also. But then of course the margins went down and down and down. But if in exchange you get a share of the rights, then things look different. Producers might want to take a risk because they're going to have some rights in their books, and they participate on the success of something. This could be done, for example, and so where they can spend less money, but they don't get all the rights.
But in general,
sorry, Jennifer, you go, because I just want to say that it really infuriates me when I'm being told that it's out of our control, even though I know it's out of our control. But somehow I feel that we have control of something. We have control of the legal environment. We have control, or we should, at least as citizens of Europe and our respective countries, we should have some influence on how our industry is shaped, because we are the industry, So even though I can't, a little Joanna Szymanska from Warsaw cannot really stop David Zaslav from spinning this thing he's spinning. Maybe I could. Okay, but let's be realistic for a few minutes. But I hope I can, or we can, as a united industry, at least demand something from our policymakers. I don't know, Jennifer, sorry, you were saying something.
No, I think it reminds me the discussion we had about independent cinema. I think Joanna mentioned that, there is still a strong ecosystem, and I think we have to get organized again. I mean, we had an ecosystem before. We are going to have an ecosystem in between and after, and I think we need to get organized. And we are not the only sector, depending on that. But if we create a complete dependence on America, that's going to be a problem. And I think that we are facing this as other sector and other industry are facing exactly the same, So how do we do now? We don't know what is going to happen. And so, of course, I mean, we should face it, and we should join forces in Europe. The issue is what is going to happen to Europe? What is going to happen to our politics? And are the European leaders are going to agree with each other? And that's maybe the issue here, because Fabian, you mentioned the rights, the IPs, but for instance, in France, we have that. We have that regulation. We got organized to secure IPs, and we should have done this on a European level and not only one country in Europe.
Exactly, absolutely. So we're going to watch this very closely, and of course, our dear listeners, if you want, you can discuss with us on LinkedIn as well. We don't have a solution. We try to make sense here of what's going to happen, because what's sure is we cannot prevent it. Warner is for sale. Somebody's going to buy it, and we have to deal with it then. But there's an opportunity also.
cook popcorn and watch and record the podcast about it. But you say about opportunity, Fabian. What opportunities do you see in this situation? But also, let's make it a bit broader, because we shouldn't be maybe so micro focused on this buyout. But how do you feel that this new reality that we are clearly entering, also with AI, because we wanted to mention the McKinsey report, how do you think we can benefit as producers from it? What are your takeaways from the EFM?
My takeaways also, I think what's more and more crystallizing, and you said that also in your dispatch, Joanna, is that producers take matters more in their hands, and they think about what could be another tier for my business. I think we talked about it before, like the classic income tiers are you do independent cinemas where you or series where you co-own the rights and you have distribution partners and you have them in your books basically. Then you have commission work like the classic Netflix or public TV model where you just live off the margin, but you give the rights away, you have nothing to do with distribution. And what's now coming in is the third tier, is where producers actually try to think, when I produce a very low-cost film, documentary, and this is, I think, where it lies. It has to be low-cost, a low-cost feature film or documentary, whatever, and I distribute it myself over the platforms, which is nothing new. I mean, this is 10 years ago it started to happen, but nothing really happened because nobody had the distribution power. But now, since production costs coming down, thanks to AI, thanks to post-production, it doesn't apply for every film. And I still think cinema is very healthy and alive. And also commission work is still a good business, but it's in decline, but still a good business. But there's a third tier opening up for some films. Maybe you can try that, And it's also a hit business, like with everything else. Some things fail, some things work. But since production costs are going down, you can maybe try more. Maybe instead of producing one cheap film, produce maybe 5. And one of them might be good and a hit or something, And I think producers are more and more investigating into that. I'm not saying that they will do it without a distribution partner then, but they stay more independent and they get closer to the revenue. And of course, who will profit from that is the platforms. I mean, like with any gold rush, the ones who sell the pick and shovel, they get... they amass the most money,
But we should shift our business models, Like I see an opportunity there.
I don't want to build a platform. I'm not planning it. But that was the kind of the vibe, It was very like hands-on. Let's look what we can do. Let's look more pragmatic, in certain films, and not just be depending on that model or that model. Maybe try the third model. And also speaking of AI, you just mentioned it. McKinsey just published a report on what AI could mean for the film and TV production landscape. And we're going to put the link in the show notes. And what they basically say is they frame generative AI as a potentially structural shift for film and TV. Starting with some near-term changes in production workflows, which we already see, and potentially expanding into what gets made and who gets to make it and how value is distributed across the ecosystem, which I think is actually one of the biggest challenges in the future, that with more and more content, the distribution and attention that you get will be crucial. And the report argues also that early adoption is already underway in development and pre-production. Teams are testing AI to accelerate iteration and reduce time spent on routine tasks. And I mean, I do it. We do it in our company just since the beginning. We play around with it, and more and more we see what are the use cases. And I'm going to ask you also in a minute what you do with it, but just let me finish what they say. And over the medium term, McKinsey sees that the impacts they may scale across physical production and post-production, I think, which they already do, with economics shifting if AI meaningfully lowers barriers to high-end content creation and increases overall supply. Yeah, there we have it again. How do you get attention then? And under different adoption scenarios, the industry could see more creators and smaller studios producing higher quality work. So there you are again, Joanna. You could be David Zaslav of your own studio. You can build $1 billion company.
Go for it.
It's coming, baby.
And faster consumer attention will drift toward user-generated platforms like UGC platforms and new formats that are more immersive, personalized, or participatory. That's what they say. I still have doubts participatory, this kind of interactive film thing was
Always
always kind of
believe-
special, but it could be something
Always
different.
believe big tech
Yeah.
when they say they're going to democratize something. I mean, that's the founding lie.
But that's what I found. But interaction could also be what we see in vertical drama. The interaction is not that you have influence on the story, but the interaction is that you are prompted to buy a token or not. You have to deal with yourself. What am I going to do with my time right now? Do I buy the token or not? You don't buy a subscription. You will be asked all the time, and that creates kind of an engagement and interaction, which more comes from the game industry, I think. So these are like the things that are happening right now. And I mean, McKinsey, what they say, I think it's not super new, but it's interesting to see that they deeply researched into that. And this underlines what we just talked about. But Jennifer, how do you use AI in what you do?
Well, I use really a little bit of AI just for translation mostly. Like when I need to make sure that the translation is good, and sometimes I use AI as I would use Google, like for looking at an information or summarize an information. But I always double check. I double check if it's the sources. I don't really trust. I still have an issue with the bias. I think it's still you still have some stereotype answers. I mean, I really use free AI. I don't have any software, specific software, and most of the time I would say that on the free version there's always incorrect element, and sometimes it's really I mean, we really see that we need human oversight, to just have a look at things, and I think it's still central to have. I mean, it's a tool, but it's not a replacement for me at all. I mean, it's really I use it as mostly to summarize things or to translate things, and I still think, I mean, if we go this way, we still need regulation and ethics on it. How studios are going to use it, how platforms, how unions and governments are going to navigate the issue of rights, and also of how they are trained, and that's something that worries me a lot. Where does the information come from? And it comes from America. Is it coming from China? And I mean, I think there is a lack of transparency, and even when they answer, I always struggle to see what's the sources. So that's maybe my my background at university, where I had to source everything, and I had to compile my sources. But for me, it's always a question. But I see people are using it for anything, and what scares me is that a lot of people around me, not necessarily working in cinema, they take it for granted. AI told me this, so it's the truth. And so
we need more literacy.
Yeah.
Oh, guys,
critical
we
thinking,
need another
Joanna?
episode for this.
Yeah, Joanna, go.
No, but I'll be very brief, because also I want to get to the fun part when we decide who gets the César and the Oscars. But I feel that in terms of the usage of AI, I mean, anybody who knows me, they know that I use it every day for almost everything. And as the McKinsey report said, it's predominantly a time saver for me. So I can move faster with things that are repetitive, mundane, or, obstacles I usually struggle with, like having a first draft of something. For me, it's much easier to correct something than to write the first draft. So I basically use the chatbots to spill out the first draft and then just work off it. I try to vibe code. I try to do a lot of things because, of course, also we have to remember we are in a bubble. I mean, there was a graphic circulating in this week over LinkedIn and other platforms showing how many people actually effectively use AI. And if I'm not mistaken, out of the whole global population, it's 0.3 who have work with AI regularly, So we are a niche of a niche. And we shouldn't give in to this kind of narrative that it's inevitable, that it will transform the world and, general artificial intelligence is there to terminate us all. Basically, my book recommendation, Current How, Empire of AI, read it, be informed, and then we can pick up the discussion from there, because I think what is interesting and what we are not talking enough about is practical applications. And there is still a lot of fear, but there are people who are trying to implement AI practically. And without giving out any names, I can also say that we will have a guest who will give us an insight into more practical AI applications soon. Yeah.
Very much
Super.
looking forward to this one. And okay, let's cut to the fun part then. You just mentioned it. Césars and Oscars are coming up. I don't know. I mean, this is just like, we don't have a glass bowl, but Jennifer, what does the César mean in France?
Exactly.
Does it
César,
really mean
the
more,
least political award in the world.
Yeah. Does it mean more box office, more
You just
political
summarized
relevance?
it. The least, but we have a statement from everyone who's giving an award. We have statement all along. But yeah, I mean, the nomination usually are not that political. In some years, I would not dare criticizing the old institution, but I think
it's
this
also
year,
about who is not nominated, right?
yeah, exactly. Who is not nominated, and I think this year, Kauthar Ben Anya, The Voice of Hind Rajab, the poignant drama about the fatal shooting of a 6-year-old in Gaza, and the film has won accolades internationally and were not selected for César nomination. And I think it was BAFTA. It was selected also. I think it was nominated at the Oscar. So I think there were, as usual, significant debate in French circles, not just for who did receive nomination, but for who didn't receive nomination.
How does if I may ask, how does the nomination work? Is there a committee that's selected amongst the Academy members, or is it a voting?
Yeah, no, it's the César Academy members voting for. I think they have a selection, and they are voting for that. And you have to have a film released in theater the past year, and so yeah, sometimes it's very complicated, but it's also a critic that has been there for years about the question of votes, and there's still kind of priorities, and also always a critic about their openness or not to politically charged and global resonance cinema, and indeed it's the industry, the local industry that is voting. So I mean, it's the question about the Academy's priority and also their relationship, and some come from mainstream cinema, some come from independent cinema. You don't know who votes every year, so some argue that this reflects also tension between popular acclaimed cinema and artistic recognition, and I think they've made some self-criticism, I know, and they try to reflect this, but it's always complicated, and I think this year it's mostly high-profile films that did secure nomination.
Who's gonna win? Who's gonna win? What's your? Let me just read quickly the best film nominees here. It's Case 137 by Dominique Moll. It was just an accident by Jafar Panahi. The Little Sister, La Petite Dernière by Hafsia Herzi. Nouvelle Vague by Richard Linklater. Oh, that's a French film. Oh, it's a French.
It's a French film. I mean, French people, I love you guys, but 10 I think it's 10 nominations for a film called Nouvelle Vague, which is about a movie Breathless. I mean, France, I love you guys.
And the last nominee is the Ties That Bind Us by Karine Tardieu. What's your feeling, Jennifer?
Yeah. Speak freely. I would say that Dominique Moll, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Dominique Moll. I know a lot of people loved La Petite Dernière,
I love
but
it. It's
yeah,
Me
such
too, it's
a
a
fantastic
fantastic
yeah,
film.
exactly. I would love La Petite Dernière to win. At the same time, I love Ensemble Accident as well. A Simple Accident. I love Richard Linklater, so I don't know. But I think it's Dominique Moll. It sounds more. I don't know. More than the French choice. Sometimes I'm always amazed by the nomination because I remember for I think it's Titan. Titan who won the Palme d'Or wasn't nominated. It was nominated for best film, but I think she wasn't nominated for best
No.
director. Or it's the opposite.
Yes, but I can give you some data of who will decide because I found it out. And
Okay.
it's 4,955 members. And in the first round, the press release says by César Academy says that 71.87%, which means 3,561 votes were cast. So it means that over 70% of the Academy members voted, which is, I think, quite a nice turnout when it comes to voting.
But how is it in Germany? Of course, the Academy has about the same size, but we all know that many of them are actors. They maybe decide from a different perspective, which I understand, but it's a vast majority are actors and not directors, producers, screenwriters. Does it have an influence on the vote?
I think it's balance in France. I think it's balance between because they have committees. You know, they have committees for producer, committees for actors, committees for. So I think it's kind of balance.
Okay. I think in Germany too, they have a system where you can just vote for certain categories and some others not. But
yeah, like a tier system. But it's also funny that in all these countries, these academia are private entities. I mean, it's the same for the Oscars. It's a private entity that sort of established itself as the most recognizable film award. So
okay, let's have another wild guess. Best foreign film. I know there's also best first feature, best animation, best documentary, but you know this episode's going to take forever. Maybe next week we're going to talk about the other. But best foreign film, we have the nominees for the Césars: Black Dog by Guan Hu, Chinese film; One Battle After Another by P.T. Anderson; The Secret Agent by Kleber Mendonça Filho. And it's a German co-production as well. Sentimental Value, also German co-production by Joachim Trier, and Sirat by Oliver Lacks.
My vote is on Sirat because it's the Frenchiest.
I think it would be between Secret Agent and Sirat, you know. And usually the French, you know, they love the César of foreign film because that's where they can take risk, you know. So usually, so I'm sure it will be more maybe a more artistic driven, like I would say the Secret Agent or Sirat. Yeah.
No. I really love how the César want to distinguish themselves kind of as being au contraire to everyone.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
else.
All
I
the
love
time.
this.
You know, that's why, you know, when they have a Palme d'Or, they don't even, you know,
they don't even bother to nominate it because
don't
why?
even bother. Yes. I had I don't know how many discussions with friends, and they said yes, but we don't like the film, and I said we don't care. I mean the the director. I mean she got the Palme d'Or, so how do we care? You know, she deserved it. That's it. You know, and then you like, you don't like, then you vote. But at least you can nominate her. But that's very French.
Greta
but what I like
Gerwig
about
wasn't
César,
also nominated for Barbie and.
Yeah.
Hello. So I think it has something to do with sexism, but maybe that's for another topic.
Yeah,
that's
we
for
make
another
another episode on sexism. I'm looking forward to that.
What I like anyway is that we talk about cinema, and that's the best of César, is that at least people talk about César and everyone has something to say, and everyone is against something, and that's very French to be against, to be to want to make a revolution because of César. And so each year we have this event, and this event always brings some buzz and some discussion about cinema. It's political.
Exactly. And I think we should wrap it here because Oscars are still a couple of weeks away. and we can cast our Oscar predictions later on in the series.
Exactly, I totally agree. So who's reading us out? Shall I do it, Joanna?
Yeah,
do
you
wanna
can do it.
Okay.
No, you do it, Fabian.
Okay, that's it for today. Thanks to my co-hosts, Joanna Szymanska and Jennifer Sabbah-Immagine. Make sure you follow our community on LinkedIn. That's simply the Sideletters. And see you next Wednesday when we will be back with B2B insights and politics on the creative industries in Europe.
Or not, maybe just gossip, right?
Could be.
Ciao.